Yes, everybody, Russ from the West Ham Network. Hope you are all safe and well. The Potter era has begun. We did the cover the Graham Potter first press conference this morning, and he still did a few for sure, wasn't a few focuses. So there we go. Maybe we'll keep those counters alive. But anyone who, if you haven't, this is in reference to an article that Rashane Thomas from The Athletic put out this morning. It's something that I've known about for a while, really, in terms of the fallout from the Julian Lopetegui era. And not just that, there's a couple more articles that have been going around. So we're sort of paraphrasing it, but I implore you to go and read Rashane's full article. We're actually going to hopefully have Rashane on to give us his views on the Graham Potter interview, the press conference this morning, which he was in attendance with. Very similar to what we did with about 7 months ago with Julian Lopetegui's first press conference. But yeah, it's the article itself doesn't paint Julien in a very well. It's a timeline really, and it sort of doesn't paint him in a good good light, really. It's crazy to think about it, really, in terms of the pretty messy fashion it's all happened in. And if we cut back to July, it was sort of a slightly, for some, an underwhelming. Obviously, we had Guillaume Balaguer on as well, talking, sort of bigging up Julien's appointment. And it's sort of, looking back in retrospect, it reminds me of back in 2019 when Manuel Pellegrini came in. He had that same sort of vibe to it, a big sort of ambitious name ready to turn up, shake things up. But, Lopetegui ended up becoming our shortest ever reigned full-time manager at West Ham's history. And so, what really happened. So obviously reading the article, we get a lot more into it, really. So let's rewind a bit. When West Ham made the call to bring in Lopetegui, it became, it was because apparently Tim Steidten thought that Lopetegui was the perfect fit. And sure, he, an impressive CV, Real Madrid, Sevilla, Spain, both full international and youth team. But we know that Tim had other names in mind. Ruben Amorim was a guy, obviously he's at Man United now, but he was a name that was on the shortlist. And Hussler as well, who's currently, obviously he worked wonders at St. Pauli in Germany, but obviously doing well in Brighton now. And, despite the names that Tim brought to him, it did seem that Sullivan's MO is to bring in managers, head coaches who are out of work. So it was always going to be Lopetegui, in all honesty. First day, early July, he's already off to Austria for pre-season with the squad. And then we start bringing in some new faces. Luis Guilherme comes in, Maximin Kilman, Wes Fodringham, and bringing a lot more. Pre-season wasn't great. We beat the likes of Dagenham Redbridge, people like that, but lost to like Palace, Wolves. Drew a couple of teams as well, so not exactly the best start, really. Now, one of the things Lopetegui did when he first came in was reduce the amount of time the team had off. One of his mantras was about working hard, no days off, and that seemed to backfire big time. I mean, indeed, you can see his own work ethic in that even on Wednesday when he was due to be fired, so to speak, he was still taking training. So you can see he had that work ethic, and that was something that he wanted to instill. But word from inside the dressing room was that the players found the work schedule very brutal, and commented like it was a training camp from hell. And indeed, news that we heard from various people were that the team were very disheartened with him to start off with. One of the main sticking points was the treatment of James Ward-Prowse, who was believed to be sort of given the senior vice captaincy, so to speak, of the team, and then was farmed out to Nottingham Forest as a result of bringing in Guido Rodriguez, in all honesty. And the senior sort of players, the likes of Cress, Danny Ings, um, weren't happy with that. So, again, at an early stage, there was already a resentment between the players and Lopetegui in terms of the senior existing players who were there under obviously David Moyes as well. And with the whole sort of training and stuff like that, it seemed it was led that the players felt that they had no time to recover. Morale dropped faster than a West Ham defender in the box. So that was then backtracked by Lopetegui, and he gave them more rest. But by then, I think the damage was already done in terms of the morale of the players already. And then the defeats started happening a bit more regularly. Obviously, most notably when we lost to Spurs 4-1. That was really seen as a big catalyst. Really, it wasn't pretty, and after that, Lopetegui admitted he needed to talk more to his players, communicate better, because apparently the squad was having a hard time understanding his tactics. And if anyone who watched the games would see him regularly be on the sidelines, almost apoplectic. Almost looked like, I remember Martin saying he looked like he was going to have a heart attack the way he was sort of shouting and ranting and raving, trying to get his point across. And on top of that, he was constantly changing the starting lineup. Players wouldn't even know he was playing until the morning of the match, apparently. So very confusion there in terms of that. And it didn't stop there. We know clashes between the players and the head coach were not necessarily frequent, but on a regular occurrence. He had a big falling out with Kudus at the Brentford game. And also Paqueta in that game as well. He subbed off Kudus at half-time and apparently wasn't too happy. After that, Kudus then gets a red card against Spurs and was banned for a few games. So, after that, the squad tried to lift spirits. Apparently, they organised a couple of nights out in Soho, and that was done by the squad themselves rather than necessarily from the management by all accounts. And then we can just see how he's handled certain situations as well with certain players. You've got the whole situation with Areola, who started every match and then suddenly found himself dropped. And that didn't sit very well with Areola at all. It was believed that, well, the story was it was a minor injury. That was why, but sources close to the squad said there were some serious tensions between the two. And in terms of Areola's position within the squad, he's a very popular guy within the squad, a very calm individual. And for him to be fed up and frustrated just showed how things were going. And then we had, obviously, the bust up with Jean-Claire as well. During the Arsenal game in November, 5-2 down at half time, and 5 goals conceded in the first half. Tempers flared. Tottenham was apparently furious, and Lopetegui criticised him pretty harshly at half time, by what we led to be believed that to be pulled apart, and the situation was a complete mess. But it wasn't just the players. Obviously, we know there was tensions between Tim and Lopetegui as well. Indeed, Tim was banned in quotation marks from the training ground. They butted heads on several occasions over transfers. Lopetegui really wanted Guillermo Rodriguez. Tim didn't think he was the right fit. And the club spent some big money, a mixed bag of results, really. Some signings, obviously, like Luis Guilherme, had barely played. Others, like Fulkrug, have been injured. And only a handful of those players have really made a real impact, really. And arguably, that would be Aaron Wan-Bissaka and Max Kilman, to be honest. Now, behind the scenes, apparently things were clearly not working out. Tim obviously stayed away from training to focus from the training ground to focus on the January transfer window, but people were starting to question his role in all of this, especially after a very disastrous summer, and some fans were optimistic about him coming in, and those feelings appear to have started to fade. Lopetegui, leaves West Ham with a reputation in relative tatters, I think. We've had the Guilherme Ballingate's been on TalkSport, 5 Live and stuff, trying to sort of rally around him, trying to almost damage limitation, it seems. But a poor run of form, 7 losses in his first 14 games, already got his back up with West Ham fans. we were obviously we wanted to see something. We wanted to see some sort of, what's the word, style of play, but we never really got that. Um, and it does somewhat have sort of rumblings of another one that's failed. And then on top of that, an article in the Express spoke about Mark Noble's role in this. And indeed, anyone watching the Graham Potter press conference, it was very interesting. Mark Noble was name checked. Tim Steiner wasn't name checked by Graham. Just saying it there, just saying that. But according to the article in the Express with Nobes, he was relatively instrumental in the decision to get rid of Lopetegui. He got wind of some serious complaints by the playing staff, apparently issues with how discontented they were with Lopetegui. The manager was using his assistant Edu Robio as his sort of middleman, his go-between, his translator, so to speak. We know Lopetegui's English wasn't perfect, and Robio speaks perfect English. It was handling most of the communication, apparently, between the players and the managers. And some of the players weren't happy with this. They wanted more direct contact with the boss. And when Nobes got wind of this, apparently he started to get worried. And then he apparently was not instrumental, but was someone who took these concerns to Tim and the board, and we're led to believe also that Tim was also he had complaints from the players around Lopetegui and his handling of situations, and by what led to be believed they were critical in this change, because we know realistically, unless there was a serious threat of relegation coming in, we wouldn't have got rid of Lopetegui. That's not the MO of particularly David Sullivan, you know. Um, and so for me, particularly when you look at, yeah, I think it's cost like £3.5 million to get rid of Julien. It's taken a couple of £1 million to get Graham in. So that's a £5-6 million investment. We know that's something that David Sullivan doesn't like to do. And so for me, that gives weight to all this news that's come out around. For me, it does sound like that it was a Steiner Noble offensive on the board to get this sorted. In essence, giving 6 months for Potter to come in and start implementing his ideas. As I said, the change would have only happened in my eyes if there was a serious threat of relegation. We go into 25-26 season with a bump in TV money, 15% more than we're earning this year rather. So it was all about staying in the Premier League. A minor possibility of being relegated in my eyes at the moment. But the fact is there's a lot worse teams than us, in my opinion. So this was so for me, this decision was a footballing one, both on the pitch and on the training ground by the sounds of it. And as I said, I probably used to go and read Roshane's full article, goes into a lot more detail in terms of what happened, what's been happening. And it's something that I know he's had prepared for the last few months, to be honest. And he's been gathering the intel for the last 6 months for resources. But anyway, I hope you enjoyed that. Something a bit different. We'll be doing the old Howard's headlines with the transfer news and stuff a little bit later on. But take care, stay safe, stay warm, stay humble, keep the faith. Let me know in the comments below. Are you having listened to Graham this morning and seen the interviews? How are you feeling about it? Do you know what? I'm actually really excited. I am, because it's a change. And one thing we can be sure is communication isn't going to be lost between the players and the management, where it was arguably under Lopetegui, which you always get necessarily when you have a head coach who isn't necessarily fluent in English. albeit, there's a lot of players there who English isn't their first language anyway. But regardless of that, it's the connection between the fans and the management as well. I was watching the live stream. People saying, "Oh, I can, can actually decipher what he's going to say and things like that." And he said all the right things. He said all the right things. But now it's when it matters. But take care, stay safe, stay warm, stay humble, keep the faith. Come on, you bloody irons. Much love. Bye bye.